Welcome to Raptors Weekly for the week of October the 12th. The Raptors have just beaten the Minnesota Timberwolves. Kyle Lowry just dropped 40 points in a preseason game. Andrew, got you excited?
It's just preseason, man. That's what Kyle says. It's just preseason, but yeah, I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, he looks ready to go. The weight loss. Remember in the summer you asked me like what's the most exciting move that the Raptors made? Was it like Carroll or Joseph or whatever? And I said I think it's Kyle Lowry's weight loss, and so far he's looking solid.
He's just blowing by guys right now. Like he's found a completely new gear to go to that he's getting to the rim just with kind of like a Tony Parker a few years ago, the way he just was kind of faster than everyone else, but in control and would just get to the rim whenever he wanted to. It looks a lot like that. He's not doing it with moves. He's just so much quicker than everyone.
Like I can't think of a player that made this kind of a physical transformation like this late in their career. I was trying to think back, and I was like, Zach Randolph made a transformation, but he didn't necessarily change physically. He just started playing a lot better.
Yeah.
But I can't think of a guy who actually like underwent a physical transformation. Nobody comes to mind.
I mean, I'm thinking, I guess Paul George grew like 2.5 inches the year or two at like 2 summers after he was drafted, and that was part of him blossoming into this franchise player. But I mean, that's also a really young guy, so it's not as surprising. I think you're right. I can't think of anyone who's completely changed body type in a good way. Like there are people who come to mind who kind of went the other direction on that one, but
Yeah, the Sean Kemps of the world. But yeah, Kyle Lowry's looking fantastic. He had 40 tonight. He had a 4-point play. Just like at every seam that you think like last year he might not have been able to get to. This year he's just bursting through it and getting to the rim. The defense is just late catching up to him. Like what's surprising me is not just his like his burst to the rim, but his finishing ability once he gets there seems to have gotten better. He's no longer just like leaning and throwing one in. He's actually finishing with like English on the glass, and it's really like a different player that we're seeing.
yeah, totally. I mean, he's comfortable when he gets there. Like you said, he's not struggling to get to the rim or he's not battling his way there. By the time he's getting there, he's set for the shot and the defenders aren't there in time.
Yeah,
It's looking very easy for him.
yeah, and it is preseason, mind you, but really the effect of his weight loss has been significant so far. That's Kyle Lowry. The other major signing the Raptors had obviously is DeMarre Carroll, man, and in the summer again during our podcast where we had nothing to talk about, we talked about how DeMarre Carroll wanted a bigger offensive role, and we were like, well, he was a bit of a 3-point shooter in Atlanta. Maybe that's all he can be, but in preseason so far, he's shown a ball handling ability, he's shown finishing ability, drive ability that we haven't really seen much in Atlanta.
Yeah, we saw a little bit in Atlanta, but not. I mean, he didn't need to play that same role, and I mean, with the exception of the last kind of round and a half in the playoffs, he wasn't necessarily a feature part of that offense. It was really about moving the ball around. Whereas now, he's able to play a much bigger role, and I think we're just seeing someone who's comfortable with the ball and not forcing decisions. And when the time comes to make a decision, he's just doing so intelligently. And I don't remember the last time we saw that regularly by a ball handler that wasn't a Toronto point guard, let alone a small forward.
Yeah, and today he had Casey played a lineup where he had basically James Johnson, DeMarre Carroll, and Bennett on at the same time. So I guess James Johnson was kind of playing the five in a weird way, and DeMarre Carroll was the point forward there, and he looked very comfortable handling the ball, and even threw an alley oop to James Johnson who finished. And not just this game, all throughout preseason, you've seen him kind of bring the ball up court a little bit more, catch it on the wing, and then drive to the right, use a screen, flip it off, play 1-2s with Ross, and hit a three. So he's got all these different elements to his game that in Atlanta we saw in a very limited fashion, as you said. But in Toronto, it looks like he's going to get a chance to really showcase what he's got.
Yeah, he's definitely going to be relied on a lot more that way. He turned the ball over almost like 23% as a pick and roll ball handler last year, which is really, really bad. But again, I think that's more emblematic of him probably playing a role when an offense was breaking down or just trying to force something to happen rather than being a more of a featured player. And I think that he's going to do a lot better in that role this year.
Yeah. Yeah, it's getting exciting, man. And the one guy who's going the other way around really is Patrick Patterson. And again, our summertime podcast, we're all about, well, Patrick Patterson is going to be the starter here. And so far in the preseason, it doesn't look like it, man. He is lost. And like the one point that I made in the quick reaction was the Raptors' offense is a lot different now. Last year he could afford to kind of sit in one spot and wait for the swing sequence to happen, and he might get the open three at some point. This year the ball's moving a lot more. The area where the open space is changing a lot more. So he always seems to kind of be stuck in the middle where there is no space, and he's ending up catching the ball in positions he's not really comfortable with. Do you see him getting past that, or is there a problem here?
Um, I mean, I see him improving from what we've seen so far, but I do think that the player he is going to be a problem in the starting lineup, just in that he's not a quick decision maker on offense. Like he has things that he's very good at, and I mean, if you just want to go on ability, he's probably the most talented power forward available to play in the starting unit. But he is not quick to make decisions on offense pretty much ever, whether that's to drive, to shoot, or to pass the ball. He takes a second, he looks, he sort of tries to see what's around him. He's not quick with making decisions, and especially when you already have someone like Valanciunas who is problematically slow in the post, and you're trying to make the ball move a lot more. You can't have another player, especially a big man, who is going to gum up that kind of movement. And I think that really takes away from his ability to add to the team. There's been a lot of talk in the last year or so about how it's not just this idea of stretch fours, it's playmaking fours. And Patrick Patterson is a stretch four. He can shoot from distance, but he's not a playmaking four. And that really limits his ability to help playmake and help continue moving the ball around to try to find open shots in an offensive set.
And the weird part is that he gets it actually. Like in his interview from a couple of days ago, it's on the site actually. I transcribed it. He really talked about how him and Valanciunas have to play together. How he's not just as a shooter, but he has to actually drive the ball, make plays, throw lobs in, and do those kind of things. So he's saying the right things, but just the on the court manifestation is just not there right now. And like, do you see like any sort of like conflict between the type of player he is and the type of player DeMarre Carroll is?
Um, I mean, I think DeMarre Carroll is just better at the things that we're asking Patrick Patterson to do, probably. As far as like parts, spaces of the floor that they're occupying, you mean? Like they're kind of.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, are they? Is it like a mismatch there?
It could be. That's probably more of a schematic issue than those guys specifically. I mean, if you're having them bunching up, then that's a problem with where they're being told to stand or how we're trying to design it for where they are. But
Like,
it certainly does look to be an issue.
yeah. Like my view here is that I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, or it doesn't speak badly to Patrick Patterson if he still continues to come off the bench. Like I think he's a high energy guy who's gotten used to coming off the bench and being productive in a particular kind of way. And now that he's starting, maybe, and it's his first time really starting in the NBA. It's like he's taken a little while to adapt to it. Maybe he doesn't know like what the expectations are of him. So I wouldn't have any issue actually seeing him come off the bench because I don't have that huge of an issue with a Valanciunas and Scola front line anymore. Um, I find that you can still operate with those two in the front court without your offense kind of slowing down. Like your thoughts on that, Patrick Patterson continuing to come off the bench despite kind of being the de facto power forward that should start?
Yeah, like it's a very silly game that is a storyline every year in the NBA, which is this idea of ego dominating who's going to start and who's not, and guys getting upset whether or not they're starting. And reporters have talked for years now about how big of a role this plays and how hard it is to talk a higher echelon guy into coming off the bench. And I think one of the reasons why you see veteran guys like Pierce and Vince Carter and those guys who are got into a later part in their career where they're comfortable coming off the bench and playing that role, one of the reasons that makes that so valuable is those guys know that they are a bench player, that they can be very effective coming off in that second unit and what that role is, and they embrace it. And that doesn't cause any problems on the team. That actually helps make it easier for other guys around that to sort of fall into that light as well. And I got worried this summer reading all the stories with Patrick Patterson saying like I'm the starter, I want to be the starter, and just the word starter was coming up way too often for my comfort level because it made me concerned that there's an idea where he wants to be the starter and he feels like he has something to prove and that he's owed that, and I'm concerned about that possibly becoming a problem or leading to how he's approaching the game mentally, because whether or not you start or don't start is ultimately irrelevant, and the sooner you can realize that as an NBA player, the more valuable you are, because the first minute is not more important to the game than the 32nd or the 46th minute. It's, you know, whatever makes the team work and however the game flows better should be more of a concern, but It's always ego.
Yeah, I hear you. I think that was some of the comments made on the bottom of that article kind of spoke to what you were saying as well. Is that it's how productive are you, and it doesn't matter what context you're productive in, as long as you're productive, whether it be starting or bench. And yeah, his comments might have come off, looking like he just wants to start regardless. But I think once you look at the interview, once you listen to the interview, I don't think he necessarily meant it that way. It was kind of set up for that question. It's like, do you want to start? Of course you want to start. Like, who would
Yeah.
want to say, yeah, I want to come off the bench? I think sometimes you got to watch the video to get the sense of what he was talking about. But yeah, hopefully he finds his way. But even if he doesn't, like, I have no issue him coming off the bench. I think it strengthens the bench unit that much better. And so speaking of the bench, so in Kyle Lowry's post-game interview after dropping 40, I'm going to play that for you here. He took some time to give a particular somebody some credit.
Cory is a guy who's going to get to the paint, make the right passes, set everybody up, and then make his shots when he needs to make his shots, take the layups when he needs to take them. He played in a great system under a great coach, and he just learned how to play, and now he makes the right plays every time he touches the floor.
So that's Kyle Lowry talking about Cory Joseph, man. For me, Cory Joseph so far, Andrew, it's a relief to see a point guard actually stay in front of another point guard. Like, he's not giving up dribble penetration on every single freaking possession, and he's actually be able to stick to his man, which is so rare when you think about Raptors backup point guards and Jose Calderon, Gravis Vasquez, and all these guys we've had.
Yeah, it's refreshing. He does not look Calderon-esque. He does not look Vasquez-esque. It's an actual defender out there, and it's also refreshing to watch a bench unit point guard play point guard. Like, he's looking for passes and being patient with the ball. It's all new. It's all new to me, Zarar.
Yeah, that's a good point, man. Because even before Calderon and Vasquez, who had a tendency to kind of shoot a little bit, we had Jared Jack, who was another guy who really thought he was a scorer when he was a backup point guard. But Cory Joseph has come in, and he's doing specifically backup point guard duties, taking care of the ball, playing good defense, driving when there's a seam, taking a jumper when it's offered. It's like everything he's done so far is this textbook backup point guard stuff.
Yeah, and we saw at times tonight that the second unit was able to score dynamically and in a way that looked impressive, like the ball moving around and finding the open hand. And if you can have a second unit that scores efficiently and can play some defense, you can really do a lot of damage. Like, the second units is one of the sneakiest ways to build leads or build great teams. Is like, obviously the first unit plays the bulk of the minutes, but you can cut into leads and you can build leads really quickly and under the radar if you can do that with your second unit. It's a great weapon.
Yeah, Cory Joseph, props. I think he got like a A+ or something in my reaction tonight.
Ooh.
Yeah, he's earning
teacher's
it, man.
Pet.
Speaking of not being the teacher's pet, Anthony Bennett. What did you make of him so far? How much have you seen of Bennett, and how do you evaluate his preseason so far?
I mean, he joined the team very late, and I think that every time someone talks about Anthony Bennett, they are going out of their way to try to lower expectations, and that's the best possible thing for Anthony Bennett. But he's really limited as far as knowing what he's doing on the court right now, but also just in what he's contributing. Like, whenever he's able to roll to the basket hard and catch a pass for a dunk, he's great. Whenever he's able to have enough time to set up for a shot, he can knock it down. But also, if you're stretching to try to find something nice about someone, and you're saying like, hey, like, he hit an open jumper, like congratulations. So, expectations being pretty low, I think you're hoping that he can possibly develop and find a role. They played him at center tonight for a little stretch with a really weird lineup, and I almost wondered if that could be a small little thing that he could do as far as trying to just play super small ball and do like a small ball center or something that might be some sort of opportunity for him. But I'm reaching.
I think I'm lost here because I haven't seen him do anything positive offensively when he's actually being defended. Like the pick and roll thing you said, like when he has a seam to the in the lane and he drunks it hard on the pick and roll or something like that. He can only do that if he's wide open. Like if there's a defender at the rim, or there's a defender in the paint who's blocking his path to the rim, he doesn't have like a spin move he can execute and kind of finish with some English. He doesn't have like an alternate path to take unless it's something like really basic where he just slams it home like he did against the Lakers that day. And my other issue with him is that other than lack of offensive moves or finishing ability when actually contested, it's that he doesn't seem to make enough of a impact on the game and while not having the ball. Like I don't see him crashing the boards like Biyombo does, or coming up with a block, or really hustling for the ball. He's ball watching a lot out there, and for a guy in his position he's essentially on the fringe of the NBA, you would expect him to do that a lot more. But it's almost like he's playing with a mentality that he's got number one pick talent and it'll just blossom for him in Toronto, and he's not willing to. And I'm being harsh here, that he's not willing to actually bust his gut to actually get what do what he needs to do.
No, I don't think you're wrong. I think that he's a guy who doesn't really know what he needs to be doing on the court a lot of the time to reach his maximum level of contribution. And I think that on the teams he's played for thus far, they haven't really known how to use him, especially in Cleveland, in a way to maximize his contributions either. I mean, in college, this is a guy who did most of his work out of the post and posting guys up, and
Yeah.
he rarely gets the opportunity to do that in the NBA, and I'm not sure that he should be given the opportunity to do that in the NBA. Maybe I can't imagine that he has this dominant post-up game that people are just ignoring. But I think until he realizes that his career in the league might be as, like a small ball power forward who can stretch the court and shoot when he's open, and in the meantime just be a high energy guy crashing the boards and trying to play defense and setting picks and then rolling hard. I think he needs to realize that, and I think the teams that he's playing on need to realize that. And until they both embrace that, I'm with you. I don't see a big role from him, and certainly he's not playing that way.
And he's a 26% 3-point shooter in the NBA.
Yeah.
And he's shooting under 40 from field goal percentage. So where is this small ball power forward talk coming from? I don't get what the source of this talk is.
He chooses to take a lot of bad shots, which contribute to a bad shooting percentage. But it's anytime you talk about Anthony Bennett and what he could be or what he should be, he has been so bad, and all of the stats are so bad that you have to base everything on what you think his potential could be, both skill-wise and athletically, because you can't look at anything he's demonstrated aside from rolling hard and finishing at the rim and finishing with a dunk and say he is demonstrably good at this so far in the NBA.
Yeah, agreed. So let's take a quick break, man. Let's catch our breath and come back and talk about Terrence Ross and DeMar DeRozan and the rest of the guys. Welcome to part 2 of the Rapcast. We're talking Raptors that beat the Timberwolves. Kyle Lowry had 40. Things are rosy. Andrew, Will posted a tweet on Twitter and asked, DeMarre Carroll is the best small forward for the Raptors since blank.
Mm-hmm. I was scratching my head on this one. Shawn Marion? Is Shawn Marion, did he play more power forward for us? Would you allow him into that category?
I think Shawn Marion's stay here was too brief to actually even count. He was basically trade filler in something Brian Colangelo was trying to do. I don't know what he was trying to do, but I think he was trying to make a playoff push. It doesn't even count, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Best since. So does that mean he's not the best ever, but Tracy McGrady, right? I mean, you have to say that.
That's So, Tracy McGrady is the best small forward that we've had.
Yeah. And the only other candidate here might be Mo Pete, who you could say was small forward. So I think it's if you rank all-time Raptors small forwards, I'd say Tracy McGrady is number 1.
Where's Joey Graham on that list?
Hang on.
Third?
We're only going to go up to 20, so he's not going to be on here.
Sorry, Joey.
Number 2 might be Mo Pete, and third might be DeMarre Carroll, or second might be DeMarre Carroll, and third might be Mo Pete.
Yeah. Small sample size with DeMarre Carroll thus far, but things look good.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about DeMar DeRozan a little bit here, man. I know you haven't seen a ton of preseason yet, but so far his game looks a hell of a lot similar to last season. In fact, I might say it's identical to last season. And usually he comes back over the summer with a little something new, something small but new. This year, it's really not happening for him so far. It looks the same shaky dribble, the same bad shot selection, and it's almost he's struggling not having the offense completely geared towards him. Like whereas Lowry now has adopted this new body, this burst of speed. He's attacking at every chance he gets. DeMar DeRozan still is expecting almost to have a handoff set for him, and he has about 15 seconds to operate, and it's not working out so far.
Yeah, like it's certainly possible that he has developed a better 3-point shot, which is, the third or fourth year we've come into the season saying, DeMar DeRozan with that improved 3-point shooting, or that improved handles, or whatever it may be, but he's just choosing to defer back to what he's done and what he's comfortable with. And like you said with Kyle Lowry, like Lowry changed his body type and it is reflecting in his play. And DeMar might have improved on things over the summer, but he's just doing exactly what he's always been doing on offense, and that's problematic.
How much do you think is it that he's never actually played for a great coach? Like he's never had the chance to learn from a coach who could instill some great habits in him or great philosophies in him, because he's basically had Jay Triano and Dwayne Casey. Like, do you think that affects him a little?
Absolutely. I mean, I think having a great coach and being someone like DeMar, who, like, I think DeMar is a very coachable guy. Like, I do think that he has a good reputation as far as being willing to work with the team and listen to the training staff and try to improve his game. He's definitely someone who wants to improve. So, I mean, I think that having a coach that was more offensively minded and being able to work with that would help him. And I mean, the other point there is how much of this is, are we saying this is just DeMar refusing to adapt or change, or how much of it is them saying, like, there's been a lot of talk, like, we're running the same offense as last year, we're not changing a whole lot on offense. How much of this is them saying, this is what we want you to do, DeMar?
Yeah. Certainly coming into a contract year, man, you would think that he'd come back with something strong. But again, it's so early that it's hard to make any conclusions, obviously. But just like early returns say that it's more of the same. And he still get that $25 million deal, so don't get me wrong. But it just, from a Raptors perspective, it just doesn't seem like he's going to bring anything new this year.
No, it like, even if it's not the coaching staff, and I have to think the coaching staff is approaching him about this, but even if not, you have to think that his agents and his management is going to be coming to him and saying, look, if we want to get the best possible deal, we need you to start shooting more efficiently. We need you to start, like moving the ball and improving your assist percentage and improving your 3-point shooting, because that's how we get the best possible deal, because we know that that's what the majority of GMs are looking for. Like, from one side or another, you think he's got to be getting that message pretty consistently, and it doesn't seem that way.
And it's weird because this guy is a hard worker. Like, he's a gym rat. He spends
Oh, yeah.
all summer playing basketball. It's not like he's lazy or anything like that. He's a hard worker, wants to get better. All the motivation is there. The character is there. The ethics is there. So the only thing that's missing to me, like, at this point, is just good instruction. And like that's what I've kind of boiled this down to, is that he's got every other component that should see him get better, except maybe talent. But he should be better than what he is in year 6 or whatever he's coming into now.
Yeah, agreed. And I mean, it is preseason, so maybe some of this is just like, look, like, let's just try to float on a whole bunch of possessions, and a part of this is just us trying to get by while we're working on things in practice and developing new things, and we just have game time to eat in the meantime. But
yeah,
you've got to hope that the coaching staff is either going to push for a change to that kind of an offensive look, or I don't know, like, either push him to stop doing it or stop telling him to do it.
Yeah.
I don't know which way the motivation is coming from, but it needs to change regardless.
Yeah. And his backup, Terrence Ross, he started off on fire. He had 4 steals in his first preseason game, but since then has kind of tailed off. And he actually left this game with an ankle injury. He was shooting bricks, but he went for a steal and then rolled his ankle and left the game in the fourth quarter, did not return. He struggled again. The funny comment at the bottom of that article is that like the guy goes, "Oh shit, he's never going to try to steal the ball again."
Yeah.
So Terrence Ross, man, same old, much like DeMar DeRozan.
Hey man, at the same time though, Terrence Ross had an assist as a pick and roll ball handler tonight. It was madness.
It was. I know the play you're talking about. He had a couple actually. The one was where he passed up actually a decent look and drove in 2 steps like he always does to shoot that jumper that always misses. And then DeMarre Carroll actually yelled out to him like, "Yo!" And he looked at it and then he passed him the ball for the assist. So DeMarre Carroll influencing the game even when you don't expect him to.
Yeah, and but that's the kind of, like, having that kind of encouragement can help lead to Terrence Ross doing that. He's not incapable of making that pass. He needs, everyone who is not doing that on their own needs to be encouraged to do so. He's capable of it. I still am not willing to sell my last remaining bit of Terrence Ross stock. I don't think he's going to be a superstar, but I do think he has value. Hopefully we will see it.
Did you see Matt Shantz and his Terrence Ross belief chart?
No, I missed that.
It's pretty good. It's like a scale, like at the top of the list is living on Ross Island, and at the bottom is like Terrence Ross sucks. So he's at about 20% in the Terrence Ross belief. Where are you, Andrew, on the Terrence Ross belief chart?
Like, I'm not on the island. I'm not.
Like, zero's like you've sold all the stock, you're out, and 100 is like you're buying the Terrence Ross jersey and a headband that says Terrence Ross on it.
I'm somewhere. I'd say like 55, 56%.
Oh, so more than
like
50. Okay, not bad.
I've hedged on my bet. Like I'm in a position where if that stock goes under and dies, I'm gonna come out okay, but I'm still holding.
Okay, still holding. All right. So Raptors offense last year came up with a lot of scrutiny. Right. Even though we were fourth in the league in the playoffs, kind of got exposed. Too much ISO ball. So far, though, Andrew, it's been a pleasant surprise. You haven't seen, I'd say you see maybe one or two dribble handoffs a game when last year you saw that one every other minute. So definitely the offense is different. I think a lot has to do with DeMarre Carroll being there because he's an additional ball handler that we didn't maybe have. You have Kyle Lowry, who's more active, who's going more north-south this year than he was east-west. So I think there's a lot of different factors contributing. And I think Dwayne Casey needs to be given some credit here that he's actually preaching ball movement and the screens are different. There's a lot of down screening going on, a lot of baseline screening going on. It's not just a single post screen to set up DeMar DeRozan, but there's a lot of action going on and players are moving a lot more. So it's credit to Dwayne Casey early this preseason for actually changing it up.
For sure. I mean, and there was the edit on high where we all thought Dwayne Casey was going to get fired last year, and instead his coaching staff was fired, and that has to do with the changes as well. And I think that was an edit from on high that, you will be changing the way you were running this, and he has responded. You're right. Lowry is putting a lot more energy on the ball and getting the offense moving just by virtue of how fast he's bouncing around. DeMarre Carroll is putting energy in the ball by keeping it moving and by making more opportunities for the ball to stop when it gets to a pivot point to go one way or to go to the other and to keep moving instead of dying in another spot or having another person you don't necessarily want to move the ball through. And that's becoming contagious, and that's how that works. And that's having one or two guys that are able to make quick, smart decisions and keep the ball moving not only adds a whole other element to your team, but can become contagious. And that's great to see. But that's why guys get to the San Antonio system, and they barely ever bring someone in who plugs it up. They bring someone in who embraces that system and becomes a great passer or learns to do so quickly.
Yeah. And all from other side of the ball, defensively, like all three main acquisitions that we've had from a defensive point of view, Carroll, Cory Joseph, and Biyombo are all like paying dividends early on. They're all improving the defense in whatever degree they can. Biyombo with the shot blocking, the rim protection, Carroll on the ball, just hustling. And then you have Cory Joseph, who's actually putting his man in front of him and not allowing literally any dribble penetration so far. All three making an impact. So maybe the personnel being different is obviously a huge thing. And maybe this will extend over the regular season because all three right now, man, as advertised when it comes to defense.
Yeah, no, I absolutely think it will carry over to the regular season because not only are all three individual upgrades at defense, and I think Kyle Lowry being able to play at a different level energy-wise is going to make him a better defender too. But they've changed their approach to how they're playing defense. They're not trapping nearly as crazily as they have been in the past. You're not seeing guys gamble for steals the same kind of way. And the side pick and rolls, like they're forcing everything down low. They're going blue on them, and that makes it easier for the big men like Biyombo and JV as well to try to sit back and try to play more of a defensive role instead of having to rush out or help contain. And I think that what they're doing right now is they're putting the players they've already had in a better position to succeed, and they are using the players that they have gotten to up the defense at the same time. It's great.
A little James Johnson talk, man. He's again been surprisingly missing from the lineups so far this preseason. He's playing like 6 minutes here, 7 minutes there, but not getting any extended run whatsoever. But in the run that he is getting, he's always showing up well. Like he's doing the right things again. So like James Johnson, like another year of like frustration of low playing time, or do you like what does the Raptor situation have to be for James Johnson to get playing time? Well, when I say I'm like 15, 16 minutes a game, like what needs to be the configuration for the Raptors for that to happen?
Like I don't know. I really don't know. And you and I talked about this to an endless extent last year, and it didn't happen. And whenever Dwayne Casey was asked the question, like I imagine when he's asked the question right now, he's gonna say something like, "Look, like James is a veteran, and we know what his role is going to be on this team, and he knows what his role is going to be on the team. We don't need to see a lot out of him right now. We're trying to give some run to the younger guys and see where they're going to fit in." And that's great, except that's what he was saying, a quarter of the way into the year last year and halfway through the year, and he's still not playing, and we're not seeing it. And I don't know why he's not getting a bigger role. And I mean, I think that as we see someone like Patterson perhaps struggle a little bit, you might see that as injuries start to come up. I mean, we saw Terrence hurt tonight. Who knows? But I don't know why James Johnson isn't there to fill a lot of the roles at the 3 and 4.
Yeah, and there might be some truth to what Casey's saying there, that he kind of knows what he gets in James Johnson.
Sure.
Like if you look at the box score, like from the last couple of games, Anthony Bennett playing 20 minutes. There's no way in hell he's playing 20 minutes in the regular season. So you'd imagine like he's probably playing 0 minutes, or he's playing like 5. So there's like 15 minutes there to be had, which could be distributed across Patrick Patterson or James Johnson. So there are minutes available, especially if you try to play smaller lineups. It's just a question of will Dwayne Casey stick with Patterson even if he was struggling, or will he actually go with James Johnson? And then another vector here is Terrence Ross. I think if Terrence Ross struggles and isn't productive, you might see Casey go with maybe a lineup with Patterson, Biyombo, and even James Johnson in there, just to like fuck things up a little bit. I see him doing that. So I think James Johnson's the function of James Johnson's minutes is based on Terrence Ross and how well he does, and how well Patrick Patterson adopts to the starting role.
Agreed.
Yeah. There's some talk of who's going to be the 15th man on the team. I I think it's between Ronald Roberts and Anthony Bennett, and I think we know which way that's going to go. Yeah.
And you think Bennett?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. Right, the smart money's there. And then we got the D League crew. So let's see if you think this guy goes to the D League. Lucas Nogueira.
Yes.
Can you comment? Nothing.
I think
Obvious?
I think he gets brought up for minutes every now and then, and when there's injuries, he's the first big man that's called up, but he is not a finely tool or he's not a ready product, and he's better off getting minutes. And the team is half an hour away, so it doesn't matter about bringing him up.
Normal Powell.
Norman Powell is on
Normal,
the team, I think.
normal. I'm calling him normal from now.
Normal?
Yeah, normal.
Normal Powell, like he's looked great. He looks like he doesn't look out of it's. They're preseason games, but he doesn't look out of place. He doesn't look like he's at a disadvantage size wise. He can shoot. He's making smart decisions. Like I see no reason why he's not one of the guys off the bench right away.
Ronald Roberts is going to D League. We already talked about him.
Yeah.
And then here's a guy that you may not think is going to the D League, but the way he's performed so far doesn't fill you with great confidence. Delon Wright has not looked good so far.
Yeah. Again, only played 5 minutes tonight.
And in those 5 minutes, he got caught napping, bringing the ball up the court, and got picked and got scored on. And Dwayne Casey kind of pulled him like pretty much right after that. Again, early, we keep saying that it's preseason and all that, but so far he just doesn't look very comfortable just dribbling the ball. Doesn't seem to handle pressure as well as I thought he might be. But it could just be early nerves. It's his first NBA game. Come on, man.
Yeah. Let's not jump to any kind of conclusions on anybody who's a rookie at this point. But you certainly could be right with Cory Joseph playing big minutes. I think that unless they're starting the season with Ross or someone like that hurt, they're probably not carrying another guard if they're going to take Powell.
We had a poll on the site a couple of weeks back which asked how many minutes will Delon Wright play this season, And the options were 0 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 15, 15 to 20, or more than 20. How would you vote on that question, Andrew, in the summer?
I think I answered this. I think I went with 5 to 10 when you asked me this in the summer because the way that Casey plays rookies and bringing Cory Joseph in, it didn't look likely to me.
Yeah, and 50% of leadership says that he will play between 5 and 10. The next closest answer is 10 to 15. But having watched him play so far, and also how well Cory Joseph has played, I would imagine he's now bumped into the 0 to 5 or 3 to 8 range, I'd say.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I just don't see where he's not going to play any minutes at the 2. So you're looking at him playing with the second unit. And that's probably only happening if there's some reason for Cory Joseph to play an extended amount of minutes or an injury. Which, look, both of those things are going to happen. Like, there are going to be nights where Cory Joseph plays a lot of minutes with the starters or just in general plays a lot of minutes, and there are going to be nights where one of Cory Joseph or Kyle Lowry or both are hurt. He's going to get minutes, but I don't think he's going to get regular run by any stretch of the imagination.
Right. So I think we've covered it all. And the only guy we haven't really... Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, Bruno on the team or Bruno at 905?
Oh, Bruno. I think Bruno's definitely on the 905. But yeah, what do you think of him? He actually had a half decent game today. I interviewed Matt Duncan or Nate Duncan from NBA.com after the Raptors had played the Golden State Warriors, and he was not impressed by Bruno at all. No. He kind of was like, well, he's just a guy who's out there who's not really playing basketball, and he doesn't really influence the game in any sense. And I know it was hard to disagree with anything he was saying about him. And he's saying he's just a guy who's just out there, and he doesn't really seem to have any discernible basketball skill. Like, he does shoot the ball well. In warm-ups, apparently he's the king of warm-up shooting. He's draining them down with like 80% accuracy in warm-ups, except when the game starts, he his shots hit the back rim.
Yeah. I mean,
but like, my thoughts on Bruno is that we all know going into the season that he's going to be a D-League player, and this year is all about just seeing what he's got, and it's hard to even judge him based on NBA competition.
Yeah, look, if we weren't Raptors fans, if we weren't following this team all the time, if we didn't know that they drafted Bruno, if the ESPN crew didn't freak out and say he's 2 years away from being 2 years away when he got drafted, we wouldn't know who Bruno Caboclo is. Like, that's just a fact, I think. Like, he's not a relevant NBA player. He's not going to be. And if you're watching a game, if you're just a Minnesota fan who was watching tonight's game, you would probably thought, like, wow, that guy's got long arms. Like, that's weird. That guy who looks like he's 15 and is clearly visibly nervous has enormous arms and, could maybe grow up to be an adult who is very good at basketball one day. But he's not close, and he's super nervous and unsure, and that makes sense, and that's fine. And he has freakish arms. He came up with a great block and a great dunk tonight, and there is opportunity there, but look, all of us getting mad for the 2 years from 2 years comment might end up coming back on us, and in 4 years he might be ready. But
and that block he had on Anthony Towns was possibly the first actual defensive play that he's made in his career.
He blocked a 3-pointer in his first or second game, but yeah.
Like, against like a decent NBA player at the rim,
sure.
Both guys going at it, he actually stood up and surprised Anthony Towns with his wingspan there. So congratulations to Bruno for making his first play.
Yeah, and yeah, he's on what should have been a reasonable trajectory for himself. Like, it's fine.
Mm-hmm. Hey, I got a off-topic question for you. What is Andre Miller doing in the league? Like, what's he doing there?
He's teaching classes on post-up moves and fouls. Like, Andre Miller can be 50 years old, which he's not that far away from, and he can still post a guy up. He can still sneak into a position and jump and get a layup on a guy who's much, much taller than him, who doesn't realize that he's lost position to Andre Miller. He'll still get bullcrap fouls and free throws out of places where, like, why did you foul? How did you do that? But
He's 39 years old. He's 39 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not in great shape either, by the way.
Minnesota
he's
had
not a
like
spry
what 4
39.
point guards on the lineup, like 5. They got Andre Miller, Tyus Jones, Brown, and Zach LaVine. I guess counts as one too, right?
But not Zach? Sorry, Martin. Is Martin the only player on Minnesota between the ages of 22 and 38? Like that team is it's so many young projects and young potential guys. Like too many young guys, and they cut Anthony Bennett. Like just too many young guys, and then Tayshaun Prince, Kevin Garnett, Andre Miller. It's like they have nothing in between.
It's a mishmash, yeah. So before we sign off, Andrew, the Jays came back to tie 2-2 in Texas. R.A. Dickey came through. Was not expecting that. Prediction for Game 5.
Ooh, I don't know. I'm like the ultra rationalist, except for when it comes to teams that I am actually emotionally invested in, and then I start pacing and getting worried about tempting the sports gods and jinxing and reverse jinxing and how to handle this best. I want no part of a prediction for this. No part. I'm too emotionally invested. I'm gonna be really upset if they lose. I don't want any of that resting on my shoulders.
Were you surprised that he used Price for 3 innings with a decisive game coming up?
Yeah, I was a little surprised when I first thought that, and I think the conclusion you have to draw from that is that they just wanted to. If they made it to Game 5, they had decided they wanted to start Stroman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, so looking forward. That's on a Wednesday night. Wednesday is also when the Raptors play next. I think they play the Timberwolves again, so that should be fun. It's a bit of a conflict, but we'll figure it out. So we'll talk to you guys next week, and the season's around the corner.
All right.